Satya here today to level it us with the society. An architect and designer by education from Delhi, Satya has been working with children since 2012. Satya was a Teach for India Fellow in Pune in 2016 and was the founding team of an early childhood education startup, Pune Children's Zone. She thinks and feels deeply about restorative justice and currently runs a program called Taking Up Space, where she works with adults on their own identities and accessing restoration and reconciliation for themselves. Hello, Satya.
Hi, Pooja. Thanks
How
for
are you?
having us.
We are so
Good. How are
pleased to have you
you?
in our talk show. Yeah. So tell us more about yourselves. What are you? How are you? And what you're doing. So tell us more about yourselves.
Sure. Um, so, as you mentioned in my introduction, like I was an architect. I studied architecture in Delhi. And this was something that I chose because I wanted to do it. Because I saw architecture as something that was an amalgamation of a lot of disciplines that I was interested in, like sociology, history, psychology, just looking at spaces, design. But something that happened through the course of me starting architecture was I saw that it wasn't as perhaps philosophical as I had hoped it would be. And there was a lot of structure that was imposed, which I was not particularly comfortable with, and it didn't allow that much freedom of thought. So, in my second year, I started kind of diversifying and started exploring what other spaces I would be able to use the same sensibilities. So that's when I started volunteering at this school in Nizamuddin in Delhi. And I taught grade 11 and 12 for about 1 year. I taught them English and maths. And I was doing this alongside college. And something that did, although it took a lot of toll on me with respect to just managing my time and figuring a lot of things out. I saw that this was something that really made me think deeply about myself, being in a classroom with children. And it was really exciting to be in that space, and gave me something to look forward to, something to explore with. So I think that's when I realized that at some point, like, my journey is going to lead me into some classroom somewhere, and that's where I'm going to find some of the answers. Then yeah, life went on, and I finished my architecture. And in the meanwhile, I used to travel quite a bit. I'm an only child. I've kind of grown up by myself in a lot of ways, and always had this curiosity of really how do we connect with each other? How do we connect with the world? And travel was something that I saw as a gateway through that. And I started backpacking across India, different states, and I'd do it by myself, and I'd do it on a really low budget. And global travel essentially gives you access to something that usually money doesn't, which is kindness. And I saw so much of that
Yeah.
moving across India. And when I was growing up, I'm from a fairly conservative Tamilian family raised in Delhi. So I heard a lot about how the world was really unsafe. Yet I found some safest, kindest spaces while backpacking and while traveling in India. So it challenged a lot of notions of how I see society and how I see myself in it. And just kind of started to give me this understanding that all of us can be anything we want to be, and it's these disciplines that we follow, they are to just create like some sort of a categorization, but actually everything is interconnected. And then that just got me to Teach for India, and I did my fellowship for 2 years in Pune. And then the fellowship itself is a whole other conversation, essentially,
Yeah.
because it was something that was very deep, and something that I knew was going to be very intense. But these kind of spaces, until you step into them, you don't really know what they bring out in you. So I worked in a low income public private partnership school in Pune, in one of the slum communities in Pune, called Ganjpet. And essentially, like, my children, they came from the neighboring communities, which
Okay.
were all slums.
Okay.
And essentially their parents were daily wage workers, construction workers, essentially belonging to a particular socioeconomic strata, which came with its own restrictions and limitations. And something that I saw was that a lot of belief systems are very pervasive in that space, because there's a lot of insecurity in our minds associated with poverty, and just any sort of resource deficit. Wherever we feel like we don't have enough, we become very insecure and we start operating from fear. And I saw that my children were doing that because they were
Okay.
scared, and they were seeing a lot of violence and substance abuse and a lot of alcoholism back at home in their communities. It was really common for people to have fights,
Mm.
and just like there was just a lot of intolerance, but there was also a lot of this sense of identity and connection to the community, because there is a lot of help that comes around in that space. Because at the end of the day, if you have less, then you tend to share it with the community to be able to make up for what you require. But what it also did was reinforce a lot of gender roles and gender norms. And I taught grade 9 and 10 English, and English itself is such an instrument and for access and
Yeah, yeah,
exposure. And
yeah.
I saw that that was a very good space to have these kind of deep conversations, reflective conversations. And because my children were teenagers, they were also going through a lot of changes mentally, physically, which led to a lot of questions that they had, a lot of things that they were exploring for themselves. And it was a really interesting time to be a part of their lives, very formative. So yeah, basically that led me to their homes, and then I started working with their mothers, just on understanding the quality of their lives, just providing safe spaces for them to be able to explore themselves and see who they want to be. And there's just a lot of patriarchy which is also there, so they're kind of, they feel very limited in the number of choices they have and things that they can do. So essentially, a lot of that exploration, and we started a small business where we would essentially get upcycled cloth from the community, and the women would stitch certain products. And I did a lot of product development and marketing and sales for them at that time. And we would have a lot of team meetings to develop self, think about ourselves. And essentially, that project went on for about a year and a half. But essentially, because the fellowship was crazy and it was
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
a long
Actually, I can
time.
see that because when we were in college, I couldn't think about anything up except for the project I have to do this semester. But you actually went out of the box and you chose what to do, and you actually did everything you can from their side also and from your college side also. So, yeah,
Yeah,
tell us more. It's really interesting.
yeah. Thanks. It was a lot of, like, I think pushing my own envelope. Like, I think that's been one of the ways in which I have learned best. Like, just setting these tasks for myself, and it's been
Yeah,
a very self-driven and a very self-owned sort of journey for me of exploration as well as change.
organized, I'd say.
Um, well, some of it, yeah.
Yeah,
But well, I feel like there was also this sense of um, there were a lot of parts of me coming from the home I came from, just having witnessed a lot of tension as a child,
mm,
and just different strains of violence, emotional, physical. I think it gave me also a lot of perspective and hope in that sense to be in that space and be able to create that kind of safety, which is essentially what got me to the fellowship in the first place. I was a lot of times when I wonder about why I joined the fellowship, or if anyone asks me, I usually say that it was because I was looking for love, and love got me to the fellowship. And basically, being in a classroom full of children is one of the best places
yeah,
to explore love and to
yeah.
find out for ourselves what it could mean to be fully accepted for who we are. And children have a very
Yes,
beautiful way
yeah,
of doing
yeah.
that.
That is so
So
true. Yeah,
So essentially that, and that business itself I paused towards the end of my fellowship. But what I continued to do and what I realized was that I wanted to work for some more time with the community itself, with the parents, with the mothers, So I joined the founding team of this early childhood education
Yeah.
startup called Pune Children's Zone, and essentially built along with a team of wonderful people. This program where we looked at the importance of early childhood in the development of a baby, and provide that kind of scientific as well as reflective resources for the parents to be able to understand what's the best way to provide care for their baby. And essentially, because the children were growing up in the same environment as my
Yeah.
children were in, right? So essentially, I saw that continuum, and it's one of those things where you're like, how can I step into this earlier? So just
Basically,
directly go to
one step
baby.
led to another. So everything gave you a map what to way to go ahead. This one led to this, that one led to this, and you decided you have to do this and you want to do that. One road led to another. Tell us more about your startup.
Right. So in this, basically what we did was we chose to hire women who were already parents in the community of slightly older children,
Hmm.
and we trained them in a program that we developed, which would basically look at different needs that a baby has and provide that education and that care and that knowledge to the parents. So it was home visit model. So we worked with about 400 families in 2 years. And it was an incredible project because I got to work with women and I had a wonderful team of women whom I recruited and trained and coached. And like I was by their side, and we still share a wonderful relationship. And it was something that just was indicative of how much we are capable of doing if someone kind of puts that belief and that faith in us. Um, and it was 2 incredible years of exploration and creation and so much learning. And that then got me to that this was around the time Corona started, and
Hmm.
then things changed
Change. Corona changed
on many,
everything.
many scales.
Yeah.
Yeah, it brought a lot of things into the foresight as a foreground as well, and a lot changed. So at that time, I felt like one of the things that I wanted to do was explore a bunch of other interest areas that I had, which was connected to livelihood, because it was similar to what I was doing, just working with women on
Women
small
and children.
scale
Yeah.
social enterprises. And I wanted to see what it would mean for me to not start from scratch, but to support an already existing organization. So I started working with some organizations who actually work with women directly on the field, just looking at what a development trajectory for that organization can look like for the founder, and just like figuring out what leadership training for them means, and a bunch of other things. And I also did a bunch of other projects in that time. I worked as a consultant. I did communications, I did organizational development. I also created multiple programs for different organizations, which is inclusive of Teach for India, but also Akanksha Foundation and I teach schools and a bunch of other organizations in the Maharashtra, Mumbai, Pune network. And I moved to Goa at that time, and I was living by myself, and there were a lot of personal changes that also happened at that time, and I was just kind of exploring life on my own, and learning to work on my own, which is when I realized that um, restorative justice is something that has played a very key role in my own life, in just how reconciliation with my parents has occurred in different spaces where I've accessed reconciliation, what it really means to restore ourselves. And I saw that restoration has a very deep connection with acceptance.
Yeah.
And the road to acceptance is often not so easy. So just the exploration of that led me to create a program which I piloted last year in January 2020, and then another version of it end of last year, and then now at the end of this consultancy sort of phase that I had for about a year, which gave me a lot of emotional distance also from the different projects I was doing, and
Hmm.
be able to work with different kinds of people,
Yeah.
learn a lot more about myself and
Yeah.
different organizations, how they work. I've come back to taking up space in Now this is what I'm intending to explore now for the next few
While
years and
while
dedicate me.
working with children and women and everyone, there would be this special connection with the very few, isn't it? You would be, have feeling them as the world. They'd see you as the world. For a period of time, your universe is them, and a period of time, you are their universe. So just tell us, how special the bond was. You would be having special people over there also. So
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think I actually got to make a lot of very wonderful relationships while just throughout my life. I feel in the last decade since I've been on my own, I've met some fantastic people and some very kind, very warm people. And especially my connection with children has always been, children are one of my favorite beings to be around. And I'm able to operate now from a place of affection and patience and kindness and just be a learner in that space
yeah,
along with the child to explore. And I think that was the reason that I had wonderful relationships with almost all my children that I taught across 2 years. Of course, some children and I ended up connecting a lot more because we had a lot more in common. And one of my children in particular, Chetrali, whom I've now come to see as no
wow,
longer someone who is my child, but
okay.
someone who has been a guide to me in so many ways, um, has been someone who I think has become a very integral part of my life. And my role in her life has changed. It started with me being her English teacher, and it's evolved into being a mentor at times, being a friend at times, and now to being a guardian in so many ways. And she's been someone who's like the brightest spot, I feel. So one of those people who can light up rooms wherever she goes.
What is she doing now?
And her own, yeah, so and her own life itself has been full of a lot of kind of circumstantial difficulties. She lost her parents when she was very young, and she's been a Teach for India child since the beginning, and it's been a lot of collective love that has raised her. And she had like all of these ambitions and aspirations of just, she'll always be like the fastest kid in the class, just done. Like before you say the task is over, and then she's just wondering, sitting, what to do. And I realized that she was someone who learned very easily and was really open to learning, and more than anything else, had many dreams which she wanted fulfilled and was not afraid to kind of ask for it and work hard for it. So she went on after her grade 10 um, uh, to study in a school called United World College. It's an IB school. It's a junior college which is there across the world,
Yeah,
and it's quite difficult to crack. So she went to the one in Mulshi, which is in Maharashtra, and she studied psychology and a bunch of other subjects there for 2 years. And she's always shown a very deep interest towards just how the mind works, and it's been something that also helps her have insights on herself and understand the world around her. So she wanted to pursue psychology, and right now she is doing her second year in psychology, and she's studying at this university called Wartburg, which is in Iowa in the US, and she's there on
wow,
like 100% scholarship for 4 years,
wow,
and she's right now in year two.
wow.
And yeah, she's doing exceptionally well, and I think when we are able to believe or make someone else enable someone else to believe that they are capable of doing something that they want to do, and the only thing that matters is if they want to do it, and if they have the intention to put in what it takes to create something. I think it's really beautiful then to see people shine in their own light. So yeah, Chetrali is an incredible part of my life, and she's a
Yeah,
part of everybody's life who's a part of my life. So it's like there is a whole community backing her, backing me, backing the two of us together,
yeah,
which enables us to generate whatever support we require from time to time to essentially facilitate her education, facilitate any dream that she has. So yeah, that's Jet
we
Kali.
are being there for her.
Of course, yeah, for sure. It's
So
been quite a journey for me also because
yeah,
I'm 29, so it's
actually
not
more than we can
particularly like.
imagine, children teach us back also few things. When
Totally.
working with them, we get to know, like, the more they learn from us, we also learn so much from them back when we have a strong bond with them. And that seems really beautiful in your life right now. So
Yes, very true.
you also mentioned that you had, backpacked yourself to Goa after Pune. So what is the transition? What was the process in Goa? Why did you choose Goa? Like from Pune to Goa, how did it happen? Tell us about your transition.
Right. Right. So Pune was actually beautiful. I mean, I loved my time in Pune. I was from Delhi and I've never enjoyed living in Delhi. So Pune for me was like a breath of fresh air, much too literally. So essentially moving from there to Goa was in so many ways a decision which was um, a question which I asked myself essentially at that time, because when I was leaving, when my time in Pune was getting over, my work changed. Personally, I went through breaking up of a relationship which was really close to me, and there were just a lot of changes which were happening, and suddenly I had this opportunity to completely recreate if I wanted to. And and I just looked at it like that. It was difficult, of course, because it was also the beginning of Corona and everything started to be closed and everyone started to kind of go back home. And I particularly didn't really want to do that. And I had two cats, my cats who used to live with me, and it was just us throughout the first couple of months of the lockdown. And I got thinking that, if I could choose any place to live in, and if I could choose any sort of life that I wanted, where would that be? And a bunch of other factors also just led me to pick Goa. And I just felt like, it'll give me an opportunity to be in a much cleaner environment, somewhere that's not really a city. And you get to kind of have a lot of space, access to the ocean, very scenic, very beautiful. So very like non-party Goa, basically. Like
Yeah,
essentially people access Goa either for partying or for solitude. So
yeah,
mine was the latter. I
yeah.
was looking for solitude, and
Solitude.
that's what led me to Goa. And I had this beautiful house, and this is the first time that I lived completely alone. I've lived outside of home for a long time, but I've always had flatmates, at
Okay.
least one flatmate to live with. And this time I was just in a house by myself, and it was beautiful. Like I think
The
it
actual
was one of those
solitude.
things that everything. Yeah, yeah.
So, how did you carry out what you were doing in Goa? Like the process, how it
So
happened?
which
You carried out your
what is
cycle through Goa. So, from Pune, you came to Goa. The what you did you
yeah.
proceed ahead in Goa with your process after Chakrali and
So I
everything?
was actually at that time, well, Chetrali got into college, so it was very chill. Then we were like, yeah, now I'm out of the time. So her first semester was online, so she was in India itself. So I was in Goa essentially, as I mentioned, doing consulting. So I was working with different organizations and everything was remote. So I was just working from home primarily and just spending more time focusing on just my emotional well-being, my
Hmm.
physical well-being, learning to cook, learning to kind of live with myself. I think when I look back at that time, it feels like that's what really the lesson was there, to learn and accept completely who we are when it's just us and no one's watching. And then how we show up in that space also speaks a lot about how we are feeling. So, in that sense, it was quite interesting and explorative,
Okay.
that transition itself. And then that's where I met my partner, um, in Goa. And it was, then it's been like this beautiful, joyful adventure. The last year or so, just traveling a lot, and we live in Himachal Pradesh now. And
Wow.
it was literally like from the beaches to the mountains. And it's beautiful transition now, and now I'm just working on taking up space and just spending a lot more time grounding myself, taking care of myself, and just by extension being able to offer a lot more to the world around me on a day-on-day basis. So yeah, transitions.
Yeah, this is like Pune to Goa to Himachal right now. Like started with children and women, and then due to COVID, it got affected, and then you had your chance and you focused on what you want, and then you moved to Himachal and you did your startup over there, taking up space, which you're doing right now. So tell us more about taking up space because this is like super transitional from place to place. You changed everything, but it kept improving. It keeps you focused in one place because you're going in one way to make sure that you are connected to people. So tell us more about taking a
Yeah.
space. What is this about?
Sure. So, taking up space is basically a learning experience, which is something I created last year to just see if um, adults can embark on just a journey of self exploration, but they are able to do it in a safe community. And this experience basically looks at the different identities that we have as individuals, the different ways in which we relate to ourselves and to the world, and to then examine those identities and see where we understand and recognize power within ourselves, and to look at basically the places in our life, in our mind, when we think about and they still hurt, and just looking at that pain, examining it with a lot of compassion, and doing it together makes a lot of difference, because just in general, the society we live in, because of a lot of divisive lines, there is a lot of collective pain that our consciousness experiences, like all of us in our own ways struggle in interpersonal relationships and professional relationships, relationships with ourselves, with our closest people, and the lack of confidence we feel in following something that matters to us is often because of different identities that we have, these notions that we have of who we are supposed to be. Except who we are supposed to be is essentially a discovery that we embark upon when we actually sign up for life. It's like that's what you find out
Yeah,
basically, and it at the end of the day, it's something that is very simple, very close to yourself, and rooted in a lot of love and compassion. So just being able to kind of get that space for that exploration, and also I think there are a lot of issues that we face as a society together because of our different identities, be it as men, women, trans, or different caste identities, religious identities, that actually can be very confusing,
yeah,
because there is a lack of clarity on where we are supposed to go, what we are supposed to do, and all of these notions and external pressure that we feel. And often our own inner voice, which is like an unfaltering guide, actually kind of ceases and we are not able to listen to ourselves. So very difficult to then put our own needs and expectations across. And often we end up feeling quite hurt. So it is to examine these spaces. So I hold sessions in groups. I work with individuals who are ready to go. It's quite deep. It's quite intense. Um, and I do think that a deep engagement with life gives us an opportunity to live fulfilled and content lives, where we are able to make the choices that we want to make, and understand that at the end of the day, we are all responsible for our own selves. And that's what comes together and builds
guiding
the
them to
collective
go,
conscious.
guiding them to go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, go wherever they want to go. The path itself is not fixed.
Yeah,
The it is not to say that everybody must do this, but it is to make enough safety within self to be able to discover where is it that I want to go, and to respect that and to honor that, and to make space for that truth, uh, even if it doesn't exist already. So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's true. Yeah. So Satya, the path you have taken so far, from being an architect to choosing to help children to being to work with women of the children and going ahead to the process and then coming to Pune and then shifting to Himachal and doing taking your space, all these things, I don't think it would have been a bit path of roses. It would have had so many thorns on your way and there would be so much of discouragement And there'd be moments you would have felt lost, there would be moments you would have slipped, there would be moments where you feel like, are you going in the right path? You know, the things where you felt yourself in a very weak spot and still you manage to get up and keep doing what you want to do. So tell us the difficulties you faced in this path, from the society, from yourself, from the surrounding, from the environment, from this COVID, everything. You survived all this and still you're going managing it very well. So tell us more about it.
Sure. I think the struggles were those that pretty much everyone experiences, right? Like one is just expectations of society, of my parents to um, follow through on architecture the way they see jobs or they see employment or they
Yeah,
see work. And that was a big one. But primarily, like I think I've kind of been a fierce advocate of my own independence. So I've just been like, I think that is more important than anything else. Me being able to think freely, to choose freely for myself, so that I'm responsible for all the choices that I make. I don't think it's possible to have all choices move towards the exact outcome that we want. Something that I've learned is just to also recognize when our intention comes across in different forms, to not be attached to the form in which the intention comes out. Like if it's working with children, to not just look at mainstream teaching or being in a classroom as the only way to work with children, but to see if there is a way for me to identify all the things that are really important to me, the things that really matter, the ones that I see as my dharma or my purpose in life, and to be able to find a way to live that kind of a life which is truthful to all those things. And to not be multiple different people at different times, I think has been like a very big lesson for me. Because when I was in the process of dealing with different challenges which came across at pretty much every stage, it was to find a way to be just one person.
yeah,
And it is actually quite difficult to be just one person with everyone. And slowly, as I feel like all parts of me are starting to get integrated, the more I accept myself, I'm able to just be authentic in every space.
yeah,
And it's very effortless. Then you just become this person who feels this way and who's open to learning at all times.
yeah,
So that was really like one of the things that really grounded me. And I've always been someone who's been very curious, very wondrous, um, very fascinated by the expanse and the beauty of the world, and our consciousness. And the exploration of that has led me to also meet some really, really wonderful people, who I think continue to support me through many of these challenges when they do surface, are the voice of reason, or the voice of the truth, who are not afraid to tell me really things as they are, and
yeah,
not necessarily just engage with ego, or just try to put me down. The intention is to be able to say that, okay, listen, this is the truth. Now you think about it. And I'm very grateful to have these kind of friendships in my life with different people, to be with the people I'm with on a day-on-day basis. I think it makes a very big difference, to how we see life itself. So yeah.
that is true. That is so true. Like, I can feel that kind of process, because just a normal line from college to employment itself is a very big struggle. And going against all odds is the right word I can use for you, because to make sure you make them understand, it's not about you make accepting yourself also. When you're doing this, to make sure that you don't have any hindrance further, you should also make sure that you convey people that what you want to do while you're still exploring yourself. So have a clear
Right.
picture for yourself, for the society, for your
Exactly.
family, and everything. It's
I
hard.
think one thing for sure that I would say is that what makes it a little bit easier is to not do it for anyone else, you
Yeah,
know, not to do it to show something to someone else, or to prove something, or to kind of have this opulence of any kind. At the end of the day, the only things I'm able to carry out with truth is the ones that I'm most connected to and which come out
yeah,
of me, which stems from me. And I've like cared very little about what other people think. It's not a matter of respect or disrespect. It is to say that, um, कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का
Yeah.
काम है कहना type.
Society does
So
this
it is
here
just
too. Yeah.
going on. Yeah. And honestly, like I've not really felt like the resistance of anyone else has stopped me from making any choice. So it makes you comfortable in your own skin, and then you start to feel like, okay, if you want something, then you figure out a way to do it. So it's not a fight, you know. If you don't want it to be a fight, it's not going to be a fight.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
up to us how we process all of these things in our life, right? So that immense presence of choice is, I think, that's what makes a very big difference, right? A lot of times people, we hear people around us say that, yeah, I didn't have a choice, I had to do this, right? And often, like, that's something that I keep questioning within myself, to say that, really, are you sure this is your only option? Are you sure this is your only choice? Because we always have many choices, and it's what we are willing to pay at that point for that. Just the price we are willing to pay for that choice determines whether we do something or not. So awareness, I think, of a lot of these things really helps with decision making and removes a lot of confusion from a day on day basis. So you can
Yeah.
keep coming back. I think feeling different levels of energy, or feeling fatigue, or feeling demotivated, or all of these other aspects that are very universal and what everyone experiences. I think the option we have here is to respond differently to them. And over the years, I think what has changed in me is the way I respond to myself when I don't feel so good,
Hmm.
and how much space I make for myself to be able to not just feel joyful all the time, but also be aware of times where I don't feel that happiness, and look at that and examine that and honor the happiness when it comes, and just accept everything, basically. So it's
Acceptance
a
is a
process still, really work in progress.
yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true. That is really true. I can think about because the things you did and everything, I don't know whether I would have been able to pull it if you need a clearer picture. This is not something of the same stream. You're thinking out of the box and trying to manage it and everything. This is like, making me feel so proud about you that, you pulled it all so amazingly well. So amazingly well. No, got things in place right now. You shared everything with us. What is your goal? Where are you going towards with this?
At the end of the day, I think I see myself as someone who is here to have deep, meaningful relationships with people, to be able to create an atmosphere of love and safety wherever I go, in every conversation I have.
Hmm.
And this could manifest in many different forms. One is taking up space. Other forms could be how I am in interpersonal relationships, and many other things that I know I will get to do. But more than the form itself, I think being a source of safety and love for people around me, which comes from me being able to be a source of love and safety for myself, is something that I see as my way right now and as my way forward as well. So I don't really look at success in terms of um, multiplicity or scale only, but also just to see how deeply authentic we are able to be in everything that we do. That I think is like one of the biggest qualifiers of success for me. So I think living authentically, living a truthful life, living a life which has a lot of compassion and consideration for everyone, not just human beings, but all beings that we share this planet with, the environment around us, everything that has the life force, to be able to treat it, learn to treat it with respect, to be able to navigate through it with just how you would treat something that is your own, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To not come in like you're occupying this space like it's someone else's.
Yeah.
We behave very differently in our home and in other people's homes, right? And
Yeah.
just to eliminate that difference and to say that this entire world, everything that I see is actually mine, and I have a responsibility towards it, to treat it with care. And by virtue of that, being able to create a lot of safe spaces for young adults, to explore themselves and to be able to choose the life that they want for themselves, and just for them to feel whole and resilient and courageous within themselves. So that's the way forward.
That's inspiring. Really inspiring. So, given all this, why did you choose architecture with given all this path and everything? How did architecture help you? How did it impact, by doing all these things? How did it help you actually to go through all this? Because architecture itself is a much pressure kind of course while in college, and you started your process while in college only. So, how did it help you? Why did you choose architecture? Like, what was the path of that?
Right. Then why did you choose architecture is a question that my parents ask me very often. So I think like the reason I laughed was it reminded me of that, like my dad just saying, why did you choose architecture? Why do you want to do this? But you are asking me in a different way. So
Yeah.
I have a better answer for you. I think it was primarily because I was always very fascinated by people and how people interact in different social settings. And there's this beauty to build from that I primarily access through history, because I'm a big fan of history and big fan of stories. And I saw that spaces are very powerful, that they can transform the experience, the lived experience that we have. So that's what really drew me to architecture at that point. But eventually, as I grew older, I realized that um, some things that I'd learned in architecture about qualities of good design, or how safety is important within spaces, I was able to translate into spaces which were very intangible,
Hmm.
not necessarily in build form, right? So this brings me back to the fundamental intention remains the same, but the form in which it comes to you, it may not be exactly what you think of. And I think architecture in itself gave me some of the closest friends I've had for the last decade. And people, professors, access to resources, and just this kind of insane exposure, choices to travel, and just to be able to see India, to be able to meet so many people. I think I saw, like, now when I look back, like I see it as an experience which brought me so much closer to the best way for me to bring myself into this world. So yeah, in there was a time that I was quite disconnected with the idea of being an architect, and I would just kind of feel turned off by it. But now I'm starting to slowly feel like design is everywhere and it's in everything. And if we are able to see that, then we see that all these abilities that we learn are actually very transferable, that these learnings and this wisdom can be applied wherever we are in any space that we are in. So yeah, I
It's
think
actually
architecture
really
was a huge learning.
beautiful to know that you actually interpreted architecture so beautifully in your journey. It is actually really, it's a different perspective I heard today. Using architecture as a base for helping the society. This is really inspiring again, if I have to say. So, for the
Thanks,
people
Anand.
who are listening to this interview right now, what do you want to say to them? Because right now, everybody are living inside a box, especially after Corona. We are so happy that we have a job in hand and nothing else. Like most of us are just having a stomach full just with the fact that we are working today. We should be so grateful that we are working today. But we as architects have so many responsibilities as well. It's not just about where we are employed or something. We work, but apart from that, these things are very very important for the society as well. We have a responsibility. We have a role. So please explain, just tell us, what do you want to convey to the designers in the society today?
Right. I feel like now is a very good time for us to look at how integrated design is, and
Hmm.
how design is not about just utility and aesthetics, and it's about just integrating so many different aspects of society, and so many opportunities that lie in that space. And I think something that I've come to understand is that how we are on the inside is how we are on the outside. So it's so much about working with our internal landscape. So if I were to this is something that I tell myself every day, and I tell pretty much everybody I know and love and meet. It's just that I think being able to explore within ourselves and have that kind of awareness of who we are, what we care about, um, and be able to also understand that whatever choices we make, we are able to accept them fully. And I don't think it's wrong to take up a job because you just like it, or to take up a job because it pays, or to take up a job because of a sudden designation it brings us. I think these are all different choices which exist.
Hmm.
And I think as long as we know why we are doing something, it helps us to really present ourselves fully in that space. And right now, I feel like we need people who are able to work in tandem with multiple different realms that exist in society. So design needs to work with the social structure, with psychology, with different other realms to be able to kind of juxtapose and understand what this newness can bring to us, and to be able to offer solutions which are inclusive, and to be able to have less boundary walls and more inclusive spaces, I feel is what we need together. So it's not a one size fits all solution, but it's more about an approach to how we look at things, right? So because these divisive lines, they are, someone's still paying the price for that. We may have built a wall around us where we don't see that, but it still exists.
Yeah.
So the collective consciousness is holding all of that. So just for all of us to be able to own up for ourselves and to own up for this world that we live in and we are in, would I think be the way for us to restore ourselves and move forward together.
That's beautiful. Satya, you really are a leveler because you leveled it up so much to the society with your intention. With you just proved that if you have pure intention, if you have a real good dream, you can pace it up, whatever may come through. You actually got it at level with the society, and you are going through architecture, using architecture as a path and helping the society in making them conceive what they want rather than overloading them with something which they don't worry about. Also, you're actually giving the society what they want, the basic amenity, the basic need, the basic emotion, the basic necessity. And you pulled it up so good. And all the very best for your future endeavors, Satya. All the
Thank
very
you.
best. Would love to
Thank
hear
you.
more, so much more from your projects ahead. And a special regards to Chetrali as well. We would be delighted to meet her as much soon as possible whenever she comes to India. And it was really amazing to have in a Get Real Talk series because you got us really real in this talk series by giving us all the facts. Because it's not just all sweet pockets, it's the process that actually relies on someone's, intuition about the society. And with the society we live in today, with given so much of chaos in the society, people, we really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or what is happening today as well. With given all those facts, you actually pull these things alone and got it out so well, the process and
I will not
everything.
say alone, but yeah.
It
Yeah, it was
was
definitely not something
that
like
is not
sure,
the case at all.
owned by me, but like yeah, for sure, I agree with that, and I do think that these ways in which this is how the
Yeah,
box gets expanded, right? That's
expanded.
how you
There's
start to
always a box,
understand that the
but
box is
it's about how much you expand it about. You
yeah,
actually
perhaps there isn't a box. That's the perspective I want to leave you with. Maybe there is no box. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me here. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satya. It was wonderful spending this time with you. And I hope people who listen to this actually know that it's not just about what they think. There's so much to architecture as well, and so much to the perspective. It would be opening so many eyes today, maybe, listening to this, that it's not really about how do you, if you want to bring a change, you can actually bring a change by getting things into perspective. And thank you so
Right.
much. We are so loved to
Thank
have you
you.
over here. Thank you so much. Thank you.